This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson. I'm also here with Jared Davis. It's the bye week. We unfortunately weren't able to record. Actually, I don't know. Is it unfortunate? It kind of feels unfortunate that we didn't get to decompress after the Vandy game. But that is the way this season's gone. Jared, how you doing? How are you holding up? Did you miss not watching a whole bunch of this game?
No, I did not miss not watching a whole bunch of that game. My son had soccer, so I missed it. And I record all of them. I'm like, I'll go back and watch it. And then I saw the score. I'm like, I'm not going back to watch that. So
yeah,
we're going to have to rely a lot on you, AJ, to talk about that. I did see the last few moments of the game, but I did not see much else.
I mean, besides I don't know, for most of the game, we were in it. And I feel like that is kind of the story of this whole season. Either we're in it or we've got a lead. And then the last, you can kind of see the writing on the wall in either the third or fourth quarter, we just start losing the lead, or in this case, Vandy had a 9-minute scoring drive led by Pavia, just handed the ball off a billion times. And it's you just see it coming. There's nothing else it feels like Auburn can do at this point. And that's obviously the negative part of it, but also again, what's on kind of the flip side of that is Auburn had its moments. It had its times where I think we could have carried some of that momentum. And one of those big ones in my mind is the kicking game, which of course we've talked about this. It's not normal for us Auburn fans to struggle with having a good kicker. Usually when the kicker gets up there, we have a usually way better than average college kicker out there. And fortunately this year, it's just not been that way. With Alex McPherson being out, he wasn't able to play against Vandy, and Towns he was thrown into this, and I'm sure he wasn't expecting to play this early. So there's definitely a lot of issues kind of going on there. Jared, what's kind of your thoughts on? Is there what do you do with this kicking game at this point? Do you just kind of accept it and then move forward with making sure that we don't kick as much, we go for it on fourth down or something like that? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I don't know what you do. I mean, you got to be able to kick field goals. There's 3 phases to a game, right? And if you're not able to do that, we already can't return, kicks without holding. We've basically shut that down. I mean, if you don't even kick field goals, you're left with punts. I mean, it's so I totally understand your question. I will not argue with anybody if they say don't kick again. I just don't know how you don't. I mean, if you're, 30 yards out, it's 4th and 6. I mean, what's the analytics on that? Even as bad as Towns has been, what's the greater chance? You probably still have a greater chance of making the field goal. I mean, I don't know. You
probably do. I think converting on a 4th and 6, you're probably right. And maybe the numbers, the typical numbers I feel like people have is if it's less than 3 yards and you're kind of on the plus side of the field where you're driving, then you go for it. If you're not already in field goal range, if it's 3 yards or less, right? But I think Auburn needs to bump that out, maybe 4, maybe 5 yards. If you're about to kick a 45-yard field goal. I think anything in my mind, anything past 40-yard field goal range, we should highly consider just going for it. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay. We shot our shot and that's it. We kept moving forward. And we at least tried, right? Whereas I feel like right now, I mean, you can kind of tell Towns is just not in a good headspace for this kind of thing. And I would hate that, putting Towns in another bad spot for this. So I don't know. I could see it a lot of different ways, but I would definitely go for it a little bit more on fourth down versus kicking a field goal that's questionable length for Towns Magoo. Even though we know he has a leg, like he has the leg. Now it's just a matter of the consistency and the accuracy that I'm sure will come with time. Especially think about how good Anders Carlson was last year. I think he didn't miss any field goals last year, and it's like that's the kind of standard that we're used to. And Towns, that's a high standard to kind of step into. A couple other things. Let's talk about offense for a minute, because the one scoring drive Auburn had, which was an 80-yard drive, 11 plays, pretty methodical. There was a touchdown pass to Rivaldo Fairweather, which Rivaldo, it wasn't even that great it was a low pass, which was kind of a problem with Peyton for some of the game. He did correct it later, but he was a little bit off in his passing. And Rivaldo just honestly made plays. He made some dudes miss. He dove into the end zone. I mean, it's everything that you want out of your tight end or any of your wide receivers. Just make the play when you got the ball in your hands. And it was good to see Rivaldo do that. I mean, besides that, our offense just struggled to keep drives going. And Jared, I think that this again is one of those like themes of this year is we can get some good stats every once in a while, but sustaining multiple drives in a game seems to be just so hard. Like we'll maybe sustain 2 or 3 drives in a game, score a touchdown, and that's about it. Well, this one we only had like a couple, and then a couple that ended and missed field goals, and that just kills all momentum for a team. But Jared, based on what you've kind of seen from this season, like what is Auburn's offense? I mean, we have 3 games left. You're still hypothetically, I guess, in bowl contention. Highly doubt it, but you hypothetically could if we somehow get 3 more wins. What does this offense have to do to put together drives and keep them going?
I don't know. I really don't. Well, I mean, I say that you have to make sure that your base plan is built around running the ball.
No,
and
amen.
I feel like we've had halves of that. I feel like the only full game of that was Kentucky. I realize that people watch the Kentucky film and, they probably Vanderbilt had a different plan, made it more difficult for sure. But you don't abandon the run as quick as we have, in my opinion. So I think that's where you start.
Yeah.
I don't know. It looks clunky to me when I'm watching, but I'm more critical of my team. So, I'm watching other teams and, they're struggling to score touchdowns in the red zone too. And I'm just not as focused on play by play. So I'm sure it's not that we're as far off as appears to be, but I would like to see more designed screens, I guess, getting the ball in the playmaker's hands with easy passes, maybe fewer long developing routes and more getting it. We like, for example, I did see a play on 4th down where we rolled. Is it Simmons? Is number 11 our freshman?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Malcolm Simmons. We sent him in motion. We gave the eye candy to the right. Everybody went right, and then we hit Simmons on a little quick little wheel route. That was a nice developing play. Simple. Right. Get it in your playmaker's hands. So I think, I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I go back to watch. I saw a breakdown of our earlier games, and there were dudes wide open, like wide open.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen breakdown. I don't know if that's still the case or not. If that's the case, it's execution. I mean, if the coach is getting the guys open, I don't know what else you do. But
yeah,
we are what we are at this point. So you got to be like, all right, yeah, they're open. We're just not finding them. You got to run the ball.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it starts and ends with that. Like, if we decide and commit to running the ball against, I'm thinking about ULM in particular, our next game. I think even against Texas A&M, you can commit to that. Alabama's defense at times has definitely been suspect this year. You could run the ball against them. And I mean, for goodness sakes, Auburn's done it against Alabama with way less better, offensive passers. Like we can run the ball when our strength is running the ball, and we've kept things close, really close against Alabama in the last few years, and way closer than we probably should have. But that's again just showing if we commit to it, like it's like the grind of like the running game, and it may not pay off in like the first half for committing a little bit to the run game. Maybe it will, but a lot of times it's the second half after you've run the ball 15, 20 times in the first half. That second half, the defense starts to wear down. You find a little more, you find the little crease, you find a little bit of an extra push from the offensive line. And I think that's when it starts paying off. And like here's a crazy stat for you. Like I know Jarquez only had 12 carries, so that's bad, like very bad situation. Maybe there was something going on there. I don't know. I still haven't heard if Jarquez was like injured or whatnot, but he did come in, towards the very end of the game in some pass catching situations. But he only got 2 handoffs in the whole second half. 2. How does that happen? Unless he's injured, and if he's injured, then all right, like give the ball to Damari and Jeremiah Cobb, which I think is the right call. Still committing to having some guys running the ball. But I'm like, where was Jarquez? He felt like it was just very, I don't know, just not as part of our play in the second half. And that's when I think really you could see it, kind of the writing on the wall again. Like Vandy was starting to take over in that second half, little bit by little bit. So I think running the ball, and we have to do that. I think that, I mean, again, what do we take from this Vandy game? That was a rough one. Vandy became bowl eligible. They had stuff to play for. They've got playmakers like Pavia out there. I mean, like, I don't know, Jared. Like, as much as I feel like we did a good job containing Pavia, he only had 9 passes that were caught out of the whole game, and we pretty much contained him. He only had 26 yards rushing, and I'm sure that included sacks and stuff too. But like, he wasn't a running threat at all, and like, I guess my question is, what would you take somebody like Pavia, like as a quarterback, even on bad days, but he knows how to win? Like, if you had like a quarterback like him that still struggled like he did, but still found that way to win, would you still take that kind of quarterback?
Absolutely. You give me a gamer, like a guy that just like wants to win badly to where it exudes out of him.
Yeah.
Give me that kid.
100%.
That's my thing with very limited sample size, but that's why I think you play Hank, man. Like, I don't know that Hank is necessarily like Pavi in the sense of like get on my bag, but Hank just seems unfazed.
Yeah.
I really feel like, and listen, I think that I don't ever like to get on a kid because I literally think every kid's playing the best they can. I think Thorne's too tight. I mean, he's so afraid of making a mistake that he doesn't make any play really, not in crucial times. Like it or hate it, I think Hank's like, I don't care. I'm going to go sling this ball around. Yeah, there's going to be some picks, but you also might have a 70-yard touchdown. So,
right.
And you don't want that, right? I mean, you'd rather not have the picks, and maybe you don't get those. I mean, what I don't think is fair for him, I know you ask about Pavia, but what I don't think about Hank is fair. I don't think Hank's the future of Auburn, but everybody's like, you see what happened in the first half of Arkansas? Yeah, I did, but that was the first half ever of an SEC game. I mean, and
oh yeah,
one of the interceptions, I missed it, but 90% of the fans said it hit the ground. It wasn't a pick. I'm not trying 2 or 3 big whoop, right? But like, he didn't get the second half. I think you got to roll with somebody else that'll go out there and just be confident no matter what's going on in that game.
Well, and a kind of another aspect, like there were some reports that Peyton didn't practice at all last week. So the week after we lost to Vandy, Peyton takes some time off, essentially from practicing. I'm sure he's doing the team meetings and whatnot, but like he's resting his shoulder, which if you watched the game, you saw he was definitely favoring that shoulder. And to me, that could mean it's an extra week. Like, hey, great timing. Like maybe it is a Hank Brown type game that we start throwing him in there for this next game. I mean, if you're talking about a good timing kind of thing, just like we did earlier in the season, we had a bye week. Peyton struggled, and we threw in Hank Brown at the very beginning of the season against New Mexico, and then he does really well there, and you're thinking, oh, cool, like we give him some extra reps. I do think that if you're going to do it, this is the week to do it. And especially if like whatever Peyton Thorne's shoulder injury is, I mean, he obviously was playing through it, and I love the dude for playing through some toughness and some pain. But if you're looking at it, Peyton Thorne, does he truly give you the best chance to win? And if Peyton Thorne does, like I'm thinking about the Alabama or the Texas A&M and Alabama games, both of those, if you give Peyton, if you think Peyton gives us the best shot, then let's ride with Peyton. But if you don't think that, let's go with somebody else. Like this is the time to do it, and they'll get some extra reps against ULM next week. So we'll have to see what kind of transpires over the next few days right before we play ULM, and see if Peyton makes his comeback, which knowing him, he's a tough dude. He's probably going to play if he can. I think that pretty much does it for kind of our talk about the previous game, but I do want to talk about just some of the other kind of like bigger picture things that have recently come up because I just think they're kind of interesting, and I wanted to talk to you about them, Jared. And this kind of takes like a step back from Auburn specific stuff, but this one is about the fake injury penalties, which we had discussed plenty of times, particularly around Ole Miss. And well, the SEC finally came out and said, hey, if you commit a fake injury penalty and we deem it as a fake injury penalty, like somebody like they will get penalized. That team's head coach will get penalized $50,000 for the first offense, $100,000 fine for the head coach, the second offense, and then the third offense would be the head coach is suspended for the next game, which to me is decent. I still personally, Jared, I think our approach was, I still feel like a better plan than this, because sure, is it nice to like find a coach, and that will motivate the coach to not signal to their players to go down. But I still personally like our approach better, which was, well, if you come down injured, particularly like, and it wasn't like very obvious what the penalty or the injury was, you'd have to come out for whatever number of plays, say 3 to 5 plays, the next 3 to 5 plays, and then you can come back in. Something along those lines. To me, that seems a little bit more reasonable than just saying, hey, we're going to throw these fines at these head coaches, because I don't know the SEC and how they're going to determine this, but let's be honest, SEC is very biased when it comes to anything, particularly around the top teams. And say, I don't know, whoever's at the top of the SEC has a fake injury, are they really going to find that head coach? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just distrusting of the SEC that much in their decision making. Another kind of interesting thing, Jared, or I guess I'll pause there. Jared, any kind of thoughts on this fake injury penalty, fining kind of stuff going on? Do you think that will help at all?
I think it will, in the sense that, I think some coaches were like, okay, they weren't even commenting on it, and now they've not only commented, they've set rules around it. So I think some coaches will be like, okay, I'm not. It's kind of like locking your door on a car. I mean, somebody could easily bust your window, right? But it keeps an honest
Sure.
person honest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you tug on the door, it's locked. Okay, that might make you
Mm-hmm.
you got to rethink. Do I want to bust a window? Same thing here. Like, all right, don't know that I really want to bust the window. They've made a rule
Yeah.
around it now. I'm not gonna do that anymore. Um, and I think that you're right. I don't know who brought it up, me or you, or maybe together. I do think, honestly, even from a logistical standpoint, if you're hurt so bad that you need to be helped off the field, you probably need to sit 3 or 4 plays anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I think that one could be set up and nobody get mad about it. But they've gone the other route. Ole Miss is one of the biggest teams to do it. They did not do it this past weekend. They did send a squirrel down on the field, so I don't know if that was their backup plan.
Maybe.
But maybe it's working. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It will be very hard to enforce, and you are correct. I do think the SEC, they definitely would not implement it if a team, let's say the fine maybe, but let's say a team's already done it twice and it's a big game. They're not doing
Right.
it a third time. They're not going to make the coach miss a game.
Right.
So
If I don't know, Lane Kiffin makes it to the SEC championship, but the game before there's a questionable call about one of his players, faking an injury. Will the SEC be, bold enough to go out and actually suspend Lane Kiffin for the SEC championship? Doubt it. Highly doubt it, honestly. Probably just going to overlook it.
yeah.
One other kind of just big thing, and this just got me thinking because we're headed towards the end of the season. We're kind of in our like the if you're looking in the fourth quarter per se of the season with only 3 games left, there's some things coming up, and I started to look at the transfer portal opens up in just a little under a month on December 9th, and I've heard that Hugh Freeze and his staff are already starting to recruit his current team, which I think you have to do that in today's age with the transfer portal. So they're trying to keep the best guys, keep them around, which of course it's like 4D dimensional chess going on, right? Because you're not only doing that, but you're trying to bring in the next year's class, which right now Auburn is still kind of number 5 for this next 2025 class, and that's obviously a good spot to be. But there's just so many things going on. Like you want to make sure like the new guys coming in are still committed. Like you saw, I don't know if you saw this, but like Deuce Knight was at the Ole Miss game where, the fans rushed the field. Now, Deuce Knight also was very much just going around and enjoying his college tour experience. I know that, but he is committed to Auburn. I don't know. Like that's the kind of stuff that you kind of worry about. And I'm sure, Hugh Freeze, knowing that likely next year will be the super important year for him to keep things together. Can he prove that his offense is good? Can he prove that his team can win? Can he keep bringing in these big classes? And so far the classes keep coming in, but we just can't put together the drives and the touchdowns and getting wins when it really matters. And that's just the way it's going. But I guess my question to you, Jared, around this recruiting and National Signing Day coming up right before Christmas is, do you think that we can keep this number 5 recruiting class together and still finish? In my mind, I'd still love like a top 10 recruiting class. If we drop down a little bit, that's fine. But do you think we can hold it together?
Pre-NIL, no. Post-NIL, yeah, I think we can. I think that the one thing Hugh has going for him is he is the first coach in a while that there has truly been top-down alignment, and that's from the money people down to the administration to him.
Yeah.
It's not transpired on the field. I am very frustrated with that. I have serious doubts about the longevity of his tenure beyond this year, but he does get another year. He is a fantastic recruiter. The money is there. I think the money will keep this class together. I'm more worried about the players that are already here. I think the money will also keep the majority of them. Honestly, to me, the thing you can't lose, because our defense it's getting lost in all this terrible offense. Defense is really coming on, and there's a bunch of young kids playing. You got to hold on to them
for sure.
You got to hold. Like, I don't want to lose Deuce, but if we lost Deuce is not starting next year, in my opinion. Very rare does a freshman come in. So Deuce is more of a positive sign of, hey, we finally landed a big stud high school quarterback, but he's playing 2 years from now. So Hugh's future is gonna hinge on who he gets in the portal. The thing I don't want to lose in the recruiting cycle is some more of those defensive studs, and also I think the offensive tackles, if I'm not mistaken. If this is the class, I think we have more offensive tackles committed than we've had in like the last 10 years. So like, I don't want to lose that. If Deuce were to flip, I don't like it, but as long as it doesn't create a trickle down effect, it's not the end of the world. It will look like it's the end of the world. It's not. He is not starting next year. In my humble opinion. And yes, you need to build for future, but for next year, Deuce flipping would not. However, I will say this: I don't think he flips. These kids don't love schools like we do. He's a young kid. He's enjoying football. I got no problem with it. And I still think he's probably committed to Auburn, and it's probably is because of the amount of money we can offer.
Yeah. I mean, for him to flip to Auburn said a lot, that Auburn, whatever we were pitching to him, because he decided to flip from a team that he committed to a while ago.
And he didn't flip when we weren't 8-1 when he flipped. I mean, not much has changed. I mean,
right.
We already didn't have a good record. It was not going great, and he flips to us. So, I think we underestimate just how much these kids are confident in themselves as well, which is great. I think Deuce probably looks at the situation and says, I will start next year at this place.
And maybe he does. I mean, I've seen some of his highlights. I mean, he could, but are you going to beat out, I don't know, I'm thinking about, I don't know, whoever it is, Hank Brown or whatever next potential hot shot in the transfer portal? I'm not sure about that, because you are truly going to be coming from the high school ranks up to college, and that's super hard for any quarterback. I mean, you see it even with like super good quarterbacks that are like 5-star quarterbacks like him. They're still, a lot of them, or most of them, are struggling in their very first year.
Who's the last semi-successful true freshman SEC quarterback? Is it Fromm? Jake Fromm? Did he come after Manziel?
I mean, it might have been.
Yeah, Fromm was after Manziel. I mean, I can name Fromm, and he only played because I think Eason got hurt. Fromm, Manziel. Yeah. I mean, Tebow was basically a gimmick guy. It was a fantastic gimmick, but he wasn't the starter.
Right.
I mean, there's not a lot of true freshmen that come in and play.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's I think your point is, you can have true freshmen come in and play, but are they going to be the kind of the game changers where they end up helping you win like a lot of your games? Usually not. Now you'll have the occasional like stand out. Yeah, sure. Like maybe been thinking like somebody like Bo Nix in some ways kind of did that when he came to Auburn, but he still had plenty of troubles in his very first year at Auburn at quarterback as a freshman. So,
Bo Nix was a true freshman. You're right. That's an Auburn guy, and I forgot about it. That was 2019. Yep.
Hey, and he almost beat Patrick Mahomes if it wasn't for that stupid block kick. Oh man, that would have been glorious.
Oh yeah, NFL. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Good point.
Yeah. Before we go to the ULM game, all right, I know we've definitely had some like troubles this year, and I feel like they're pretty well documented. But let's talk about something that was reported. Pretty wild things happened on a different sport. just for a minute because I think it's wild and I know it's a football podcast, but like this is wild. Like, hey, basketball season's coming up. We play Houston, top 5 team in the nation, in Houston, and Auburn has, I'm sure you've heard the news. It was like national news around the flight and all that kind of stuff. 2 of Auburn's players got into a scuffle on the flight, and they had to turn back around, which is pretty wild. Jared, I heard you, and I want to hear your thoughts on, because I'm sure Bruce is punishing those players. I mean, they didn't get to come to the Houston game, but like, if you were the coach, what would you do to punish those 2 players?
I don't. Somebody, I can't take credit. Somebody said that what they would do is make them fly Spirit Airlines for the rest of the season.
Please. And make them make them like drive to Atlanta to take a Spirit Airlines flight. Don't even allow them to go to like Montgomery, or just be like, nope, you got to drive all the way to Atlanta, even if it's like for a stupid game in, I don't know, Mississippi. You got to fly over to Mississippi in Spirit. We're not even letting you on the bus.
And I am. So, you know me, I've flown once in my life, so I can't comment on Spirit beyond just what I hear from other people. But yeah, that was pretty funny.
It's as true as like the rumors and what people say about it.
So outside of that, I mean, I don't know how bad it was. I mean, it's bad enough to turn the plane around, so that's pretty bad probably. I don't know what you do, but I'm sure Bruce will. I mean, it was pretty bold. I mean, he already left the players behind in one of the bigger regular season games we've ever had, honestly.
Yeah. That was pretty wild.
Yeah. So beyond that, do you do more? I don't know. What do you think? I mean,
I don't know.
They missed the game.
But anyway, so I did want to talk about obviously the big win, and congrats to the Auburn basketball team. I just saw that they are now ranked number 5 in the nation, which very well deserved. And maybe at some point Auburn basketball will get up in the top 25. It has been way too long, Jared, since Auburn football has been in there, and we need to get back. It's obvious Bruce Pearl has figured out his formula at Auburn and done really well. And very much excited to have basketball season kicked off, or tipped off, whatever you want to call it, for this season. All right, let's transition to the ULM game and just spend a couple minutes on this. We'll go through some of our score predictions, players to watch, and all of those topics. ULM, this game will be a 11:45 Central Time kickoff time, and we will be playing on the SEC Network. ULM this year is 5-4. They're having a decent season, but they've had a 3-game losing streak and now sit 5th in the Sun Belt Conference. I looked back just at a few games to see what's going on with ULM, and one of their absolutely biggest holes in their whole team is their run defense. And if we didn't already say it enough early in this podcast, run the dang ball. Run it, Paul. Run it, whoever you are. Run it, Hugh. Run it. Like, please, just run it. Yeah, that's the kind of thing where I just think you got to run. So I'll give you just a couple of stats. So Texas State, which of course is still Texas State, but Texas State ran the ball 326 yards. South Alabama ran the ball 300 plus yards against ULM. Both of those teams, I wouldn't say, are even in the top half of the SEC of like college football, and yet they're doing this. How Auburn can do? Auburn's. I think if you just said we're going to run the ball, 50 times against ULM and win this game, we probably would. Like, and not even pass the ball once. Like, that would be honestly pretty hilarious if we didn't pass the ball once and we just said we're going to do that, like we did. I attended Auburn versus Tennessee game where we passed the ball. I think it was like 4 times the whole game, and we still won. Like that. That's the kind of thing I want to see. If you want to like sling it around, be my guest. But if you don't run the ball against them, I'm honestly going to be kind of sad. Well, let's go into our players to watch. I think it's going to be pretty obvious for me, quarterback and potentially running back, but definitely quarterback in this kind of scenario with Peyton Thorne having a shoulder injury and not practicing the week right after Vanderbilt's game. Yeah, I think you have to watch who comes in at quarterback, how much time they get in there. I mean, this is a game for if you want to build up the young talent, see what you truly got. Um, Jared, who are you thinking for your player to watch on offense for this game against ULM?
I don't know, man. I mean, I'm with you on the fact that for this game, running the ball is the best thing to do. But if you're swapping quarterbacks, it's probably to figure out what you got for the future because you're probably not having a bowl game. So do you throw the ball some, to figure out what you
Potentially.
got? Does throwing the ball against ULM really tell you what you have? I don't know.
I know, yeah.
I mean, I guess we're going to go Jarquez. That's my player to watch. Just, because I do think you don't need to go away from him until the game's in control. So
Yeah.
I would say feed him. I'd be all right if they came out and ran the first 2 possessions only.
Right.
From then on, I do think you need to actually run an offense and see if whoever's at quarterback can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say Jarquez is the player to watch.
Yeah. And if we don't have Jarquez out there, then I'm honestly slightly worried. Maybe there is truly some sort of injury, something going on out there for him. Um, yeah, I mean, I want him to be that 1,000-yard back plus, and he has that opportunity right now, which I'm gonna actually look up how much yards he got, but I think he's really close to 1,000 yards.
Well, let me ask this question. We talk about putting somebody, I mean, the season's over. So, why would you send Thorne back out there? At some point, do you say something similar to Jarquez? Not because of his ability, but do you really start giving Damari and Cobb a bigger role because they're the ones that will be here next year?
Potentially. I mean, again, I think it comes down to, do you think if you play more Jarquez, do you think we have a legitimate shot at beating Texas A&M and Alabama? If either of those games Jarquez gives you the better shot, you better play him and give him 20 carries plus a couple passes during the whole game. If not, if you think, all right, maybe Jarquez is rode in for the season, he's just ready to get to the NFL, which I don't know if he is. I mean, after winning Kentucky, I mean, he sounded very focused and wanting to win the game.
Yeah, I don't get that sense from him. I think he's
Yeah.
I think he's going to do whatever you ask him to do. But I
Right.
agree with you. I agree with you. You got to. I'm wondering if this game though, in the ULM game, you got to get up, right? But can you use
Yeah.
this as a game to even before halftime start getting younger guys live game action? Not that Damari and them haven't played live, but
Yeah.
uh,
But like
you know,
more than like 5 carries in a
right,
game, which
just
is
get them more
roughly
comfortable.
what Cobb and Amari have been doing. Also, just looked, Jarquez does have 913 yards rushing so far this season, so he is well on track to being a 1,000-yard rusher, which it's been a while. We
Yeah,
need
he should
an
get
1,000-yard
1,000
back.
without a doubt. Yes, sir.
Um, let's go to defense. Who are you going to be watching on defense? And I guess I'll start out. I'm going to say Keldrick Falk. I think edge rushers are going to be important here. And Keldrick's been on fire these last few games, and I've loved seeing him play with that fire, come after the quarterback. But also, one thing that I think is definitely added to his game is he's not just an edge rusher that rushes the quarterback. He can play contain. He can play a little run stopping. So he's definitely starting to build out kind of more well-rounded kind of rushing style that I feel like is needed, especially at Auburn for a guy like Keldrick Falk. Jared, who are you going to be watching on defense?
I am gonna be probably the freshman guys. You got Riddick. You got who's the cornerback that's been playing very well. He's a freshman.
Caleb Harris. Is that him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to be keeping an eye really on all the freshman guys, and we're probably going to be putting more in, honestly. So yeah, Keldrick Falk is our best player. Somebody made a comment about how he got charged with the penalty that let Vanderbilt keep the drive alive.
Oh yeah.
They were like, first off, coaching has to tell him that you can't do that. But Keldrick probably looked around and he's like, ain't nobody else making plays, so I'm going to try to go make one. And
yeah.
There may be some truth to that. Like I'm going to try to go block.
I know. Well, and if he doesn't actually leverage off of somebody, which is what he ended up doing, which is the penalty. If you truly clear the offensive line without touching them, you can do that. You can jump over the line. So yeah, obviously unfortunate. I mean, I don't necessarily think that
we weren't driving down
changed
the score
the game.
anyways. Yeah, we weren't.
No, highly doubt it.
But at the end of the day, somebody made that comment. I'm like, probably right, because he's out there rocking and rolling. He's like, somebody's got to make a play.
Yeah, honestly. And he was like, I'm in a position right now, I might be able to make a play if I somehow get over these guys and block the kick. So special teams, you have to look at Towns. I mean, I don't like saying it because it's been a tough season for him. But I mean, you got to see how Towns does, how he responds. Hopefully, honestly, we don't use Towns at all, but Towns Magoo is my guy for this game that I'll be watching on special teams. Jared, who will you be watching on special teams for the ULM game?
I mean, it's got to be Towns, right? It's just,
yeah.
Can we make a field goal?
Right. Anything longer than a 35-yarder, right? Like that.
Yeah.
You gotta do it.
Yeah. That's the key. Can we make any field goal?
Man, what a wild time as an Auburn fan when we're saying, can we even kick a field goal? When
yes, sir. I know. I mean, that's
so
great.
Used to being automatic.
It is. We are. So we've been blessed, and now we're not. Not only are we just not as blessed, it's pretty bad. But
yeah, it reminds me back to I think it was 2016, maybe 2017, where we beat LSU by field goals only. We didn't even score a touchdown. That's how good our field goal team typically is.
Well, man, if you watch the Ole Miss Georgia game, I mean, Ole Miss, they scored 1 or 2 touchdowns, maybe. They kicked a bunch of field goals.
Yeah.
And played good D.
Right.
I mean, I think I saw Anthony Schwartz. He made a comment. Somebody said if Auburn had a above average quarterback, we're 7-1, and he said if we had our, I hate saying this because I'm not knocking it, but if we had our normal kicker, we're probably 6-2. And he's probably right.
I mean, kicking a field goal is almost like it's not the exclamation mark like a touchdown, but it's like a solid period. You're making a statement, right? And right now, our kicking team, if you're going with, I guess I'm going with the analogy of all the punctuations. But right now, it's like a question mark. What are we doing here? We drove 50 yards down the field and made it to the 10-yard line, and we can't even kick a short field goal. That's what our offense is saying right now.
We beat Missouri and Oklahoma without a doubt if we have a kicker. I would have to go back and think about the other games, how it impacted it, but we beat Missouri and Oklahoma.
I mean, I'd even say this game against Vandy is different if we kick a better field goal.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, so you're probably right. I mean, I didn't get to see it. I can't remember the Arkansas and Cal game, how that broke. I think Georgia, I don't think field goals necessarily matter against Georgia. But it might change the way you call plays. You might be a little more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Should have really just tried to get more yards. It changes everything. But I think a very easy statement is, a field goal against Oklahoma before half, a field goal at Missouri at the end, probably puts those games out of reach.
I think so. I definitely think so. All right, let's talk about our score predictions for this game, and then we'll talk also about top offensive threats. Our score predictions, preseason had us winning 35 points. Auburn right now is a 24-point favorite according to Vegas. How are you feeling? Do you think we end up winning? I think yours was 30 preseason. Do you still think that that's possible? And I will say also, I think ULM is probably a better team than we probably want to think. I don't think we're absolutely going to just dominate them every single way. I mean, I think they're gonna do something too. How are you feeling? Like, what's your score prediction?
I think we'll win by 20. I think it probably winds up being like 30-10. Yeah, I think they probably hold us lower than we'd like for them to. I think our defense probably does, enough to keep it mostly comfortable, though.
Yeah, I mean, with how good our defense is, I mean, we should be able to keep ULM pretty easily under a couple scores. Like, I don't think we should. They're going to put up a bunch of points on us. I'm going to go a little bolder than you. I'm going to say 28 points that we win by.
That a boy.
That feels about right. Because I think you got 4 touchdowns extra. I think a couple of those probably come from our run game. If, like, what you're saying is true, we start slinging the ball around, especially if somebody like Hank Brown's out there. We're trying to figure out what we got with him. I think that's a good spot to do it. And I think some of those, we saw Hank Brown's long ball. He's got that. He's got the good touch on it. So I think that's possible. Just I think I forgot to mention this, but as far as our score updates, up until this week, I have a 19-point lead over Jared. So it's all come down to these last few games, and I think it'll, depending on how this game goes, I think that this will, maybe for the last 2 games of our season against A&M and Alabama, I'll see. I think we might do like a double, whatever we predict, like we can put down some of our points. I don't know. I haven't figured out, but we'll figure out some sort of way to make sure that it's competitive at the end of the year.
You're saying I'm so poor at this, you're going to have to change the rules to give me a shot.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
If it wasn't true, I might be offended by that.
And then our top offensive threats, a little scoring update on that one. I had KLS and you had Jarquez, which I would have thought would have been a good pick with Jarquez. But both of us were wrong. Rivaldo was the only guy who got a touchdown last week, which I don't know if I would have predicted that. But here we are. And Rivaldo had that crazy good run after he caught the ball. Top offensive threats for this game, though, against ULM. Jared, who are you going to be watching in this one? Who do you think it's going to get the most touchdowns?
I mean, it's got to go back to Jarquez, right? I mean, even though I said, do you give the younger guys carries? I think the crazy thing is Hugh's seat is so hot. I mean, he can't need this. He can't lose this game, and he doesn't need to.
Oh no!
So if he's smart, I think we're gonna see a lot of Jarquez at least in the first half. So yeah, I think that's probably the safe bet.
You're probably right. I mean, I want to say that too, but I'm gonna say maybe in the second half we start putting in. I feel like Damari's next guy up, so I'm gonna go with him, Damari, see what he can do. And I think you're probably right. First half will be Jarquez mostly, give it a heavy dose of him. In the second half, give more of the carries to Damari and maybe even Cobb. And it honestly wouldn't shock me if we bring in, some other guys in it running back. All right, that has been a wild ride, and we're on this Auburn experience with y'all. Thankfully, it is basketball season. I am not immune to cheering for this Auburn basketball team, even though Auburn football has struggled a good bit this year. And but we still have a few more games left. And it is one of those things, I don't know about you, Jared, even in a tough year, we still get through more games of football. And there is something, even if it's a tough season, I still enjoy watching Auburn football because you only get really 12, 13 games if you're a good team to watch them per year. So it's anytime I get to watch them, I will definitely do that. Jared, before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.